3 years together. Both doing really great work. Really neat teachers, and more importantly, really great people.
There you go.
Very excited to have them here.
So sorry.
It's okay.
If you come do that to me next week.
You know what he did to me? Recently, I'm working with my band, and he steps in that door and goes, "You counted them off!" And he walked out. The filter is gone. It's gone. But anyway, I'm excited to have them with us today. Doing really great work. And like I said, really great people. Tim, I have to say, did his GA, was graduate assistant here, once a GA, always a GA. But he did his graduate assistantship here for 2 years at like a really important time in my life. And was like so, I tell you what, it's a big reason why I'm still here. He said things at all the perfect times. It was just perfect. But I'm really excited to have them here. This really came from Cindy Bullock saying, "You guys need to do something." And so I gave him a call and he goes, "Oh yeah, we're already working on something." So we did it. So, welcome, Tim.
All right.
Yeah, now I'm on it.
Well, thank y'all very much. And when Dr. Teblack called us up, boy, we were just like, well, this is perfect timing. This is great. So we jumped on the chance to get to do this. So thank you, Dr. Teblack, for letting us do this little thing for y'all here. The clinic that we are doing right now just kind of came about because of things that we've learned. But I'll just go ahead and start at the beginning here. So many times when I'm working with multiple dance students, different things, can I close that blank? I'll run across kids, and what I'll do is I will bring up the question to them when I'm working with kids from different backgrounds or kids from different just knowledges, different levels and abilities. And I'll ask the students, and I'll say, "Hey, guys, what's a beat?" And 9 times out of 10, I'll get the answer, a quarter note. I'll go, "Well, most of the times you're right, but what if the quarter note's not the beat? What's the beat in that case?" And then I'll usually get this answer. And it usually happens a lot. So then I'll say, okay, let's skip that. Let's go to this thing here. So let's take a look at this measure. I'll say, what's the note on beat 2? Will be my question for the kids. And then 9 times out of 10, the answer to that I'll get, you have to push it again, will be that note. And I'll go, no. That's the second note. What's this note on the second beat? So what I've discovered a lot is many times kids' knowledge of rhythm really just comes from either they've learned it by 4/4 time, and that is it. Or they've just learned rhythms by rote. They've heard it by their teachers multiple times, over and over and over again, and so they just don't have a really good knowledge of what rhythm really is. So it's not that they're ignorant on it, it's just they don't understand all the concepts. So they tend to struggle a lot when we get to new concepts and new music, and they are waiting for someone to count the rhythm for them. They just don't understand what makes it up, or if it's something out of 4/4 time, boy, they really seem to trip off on that. So what we use at Irons Middle School is what I first learned at College Station and College Station ISD. And I don't know if they use it still or not, but when I first saw this, my first reaction was, this is a waste of time. Then I just jumped the gun too soon when I saw this, because it is not a waste of time. It has such huge benefits, and it becomes such a valuable tool for us throughout the year, and it just creates such a strong rhythmical foundation. So what we're going to try to show you today here is we're going to introduce how we introduce rhythm to our beginners first. And we'll show you how we use this throughout the school year and beyond. And then as an aside, just so you know, we do use the breath impulse method at our school. And we do use the Eastman counting system. And we're not here to debate the pros and cons of that. Okay, so we're not going to go there. But you need to understand too that everything that we're using can be adapted for any other counting system, and it can be adapted for any band method system as well. Okay? At Irons Middle School, where we're at, our first 2 weeks of school, we just use rhythmic skills. We don't have instruments in our hands. We just do rhythmic skills and other things as well. But we're trying to get that idea and foundation set early on, right off from the start. So we do this for 3 reasons. Number one, many times our kids have not interviewed for all the instruments. And so we'll have kids in mixed classes. We have homogeneous beginner classes, and we're very fortunate for that. So it gives us time to get them to the right classes. So for those first 2 weeks, they can still be learning the same concepts, even though they might not be in the right instrument class at that moment, because it takes us a couple days to get that switched out. Number two, most of the times the kids will either not have their supplies gathered yet, and we don't want someone to get behind when we do start with instruments, or it's the wrong supplies. No, we don't want those mallets. No, we don't want those reeds. Go back to the store, do it again. So that helps out too. And again, number three, like I mentioned before, just those huge benefits that they have that rhythmical foundation right when they get started. So when they get this new thing in their hands and they're not quite sure, how to do this, they've got something to anchor onto with rhythm at least to help us get started throughout the year. The things that we use for this, the basis for all this is called The Games of Music by Ralph Burton. It is published originally by Southern Music Company, but it's still in print today through Hal Leonard. And you could get this, but most people, I think, what happened was when Southern started printing this up is when they were basically going out. And so it just switched over, and not a lot of people know about this method at all. We don't treat it like a gospel. It's not like this is the way we do it and anything. We just pull the things out that we want. We pull the ideas, we pull the sequencing, see how it works for us. It's not a band method. It's supplemental to a band method. So you can still use whatever band method, essential elements, we use Rhythm Master, whatever you want to use to apply with it. So it works really well on that concept as well. Okay.
The very first concept that we want kids to understand in our classroom is what is a beat. We tell them the definition is 1 beat equals 1 foot tap. That's plain and simple, right? That's easier than saying it's a quarter note, it's an eighth note, whatever. 1 beat is 1 foot tap. We then go on to tell them that the foot tap can be broken down into 2 parts. We have a down and an up. Pretty simple, right? We show the kids and get them, and we demonstrate how we want the foot tap to look like, heel on the ground, smooth motion with toes, the always, even, never in between. And then once everyone is kind of getting the concept, we play, and I think it's funny that Tim writes this down. He said we always play like a fun new song, but he always ends up playing like Dave Matthews or something weird like that. So he's so hip. And so what we do is we start playing the song, and we're just jamming out in the band hall, and we're walking around and we're just checking kids' feet. Are they even? And then Tim always tells a story about Dr. Garner getting on his hands and knees and just moving his foot. Has anyone done that? Okay, so it's a real story. Okay, it's not make-believe. I never know. And then we tell them that this beat or foot tap will help us learn all of our rhythms. We have the foundation. And the next thing we want to make sure is what the elements of the music are. So we have the kids draw a triangle around the word music, and then on each corner of it we put sound, silence, and rhythm. You notice the rhythm is on the top because we consider it the most important. Next, we convert these words to our band words. Silence equals rest, sound equals notes, and rhythm is counting. My spot. The great example that Mr. King always used with this about rhythm being the most important is he will get out his clarinet and he'll say, I'm going to play you a song. It's a song that you should recognize. He's like, I want you to raise your hand whenever you know what it is. And he'll play Joy to the World. But he'll play the rhythm absolutely terrible. He'll add random rest. It makes no sense. And the kids are like, this isn't anything. You're making things up, Mr. King. And then he'll play it again with the correct rhythm. When he does that, all the kids, some of them will give you weird answers, but most of them will say, oh, that's Joy to the World. And Joe just kind of goes forward and shows those kids rhythm is the most important. You can have all the right sounds and rest, but if you don't have the correct rhythm, it means nothing. Now let's go back to the beat. We know what a beat is and we know how it feels. Next we want to show them what does it look like. We're going to represent a beat like this. One circle. We tell the kids this is a beat and do not jump the gun. Some of the guys will know what a quarter note or a whole note looks like from their elementary teaching, but we want to make sure they know this is not a note. It is a circle. So the circle represents one beat, which is 1 foot tap. We can also see that the foot tap will be drawn below. We use what we call the foot language, and it is an arrow going down and up. We tell them this is our foot language. it shows what our foot looks like for every single beat. I know many draw the foot tab with a downward arrow and then an upward arrow, but we keep ours this way for a very specific reason, which you'll see in a few minutes. Now that we know what a beat looks like and how it feels, now we need to know how do we count it, or how do we perform a beat. We can't perform it yet because we don't have an instrument, so what we have to do is we have to count it, of course, and then we demonstrate how we say it. The way we say it is 1. Notice that there are 2 parts to it. We do use a pulse system, like he was saying. The 1, it has 2 parts. We have the 1 going down, and then the for the second half, right? That's the pulsing system. But we want to make sure that they understand the is the up part. It's not just 1. So then what we do is we go through this process of having 1 beat and counting it, and then we'll go on and start adding 2 beats. Is that the next slide?
Well, or putting the 1 into
Oh yeah, so then we put the 1 inside the circle and we would count it. So what this would just look like is 1. So what I'm going to have you do is I want you to sit on the front edge of your seat right now. Yes, you can participate. Plus I want to make sure you're not texting your boyfriend or girlfriend right now, husband and wife. Here we go. So we're going to count just this 1 beat. It goes down, up, ready, go. 1. Very good. And you're West Texas people, so you love that pulsing, right? I love it. All right. So after we say, okay, this is 1 beat, next we erase everything and we're going to write 2 circles. And we ask, how many beats do we have now? So how many beats do we have now? 2 beats, right? We have beat 1 and beat 2. And then say each beat we're going to write a 1 and then another 1. So we're going to write our foot language below. Once again, we have a 1 arrow. Notice it's connected. It's a down and an upward arrow. And then we have the same thing on the other one. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, especially for you guys who have been counting for a while. We're not going to say 1, 2 yet. We're going to pause on that and wait for it. Instead, what we're going to say is on the first beat, 1, and on the second beat, we're going to say 1 again. Got it? Smile and nod?
Yes.
Yay! All right, let's count it. Ready? Down, up, ready, go. 1, 1. Very good. Then we get them to do it over and over and over until they're doing it forever, and they love it, and all they think band is easy because they can count 1, and then onward, down. We could do 3. We can count 3. You want to count it? Ready? Down, up, ready, go.
1, 1, 1.
All right. So, all this, just for your knowledge, is happening within that first day. All this knowledge is happening within the first day that we're actually teaching rhythm to the kids. The very first day, obviously, is we were doing handouts, things like that, much most people do, the handbooks, things like this. So this is actually going on the first day, including this next step. And this is an important one. We need to introduce the idea of subdivisions to the kids. And we want to use something that they're used to already and that they have. So we use this analogy. And we'll say, hey, I own this nice big piece of land, and I decide to build a house on it. There it goes. All right? And all of a sudden, and what we'll do if I have an assistant director or whatever, we'll say, Miss Coleman comes along and says, man, that's some awesome land. Can I build my house on there too? So sure. So I divide my land. And someone else. And then we'll use either principals or someone else. So Miss Bullock comes up and Mr. Mars comes up and says, hey, this is awesome. Can we build on this too? And so we're just keep dividing the land up. And so we decide, you know what? We need to put some roads in. Let's do a community pool. That sounds awesome. Miss Bullock's like, I want gated. Let's get this gate thing going. So we're doing homeowners associations and everything. And then we'll ask the kids, do you know what this is? And most of them are like, oh yeah, that's a subdivision. I live in blah, blah, blah subdivision or something like this. And we're like, well, that's right. Well, guess what? In our music, we can divide any beat up to, and we also call it subdivisions. But we're going to change our definition just a little bit more. So we're going to change our definition for a subdivision, and we're going to change it to this. So we tell the kids the subdivision is 1 beat, that circle that we just did, divided into blank equal parts. And we make sure that they write that blank equal underneath. I did forget to mention, we also ask our kids to do notes for this, because we give them a test at the end of the 2 weeks. And any notes they take, they can use on the test. So they're very intensely writing all these notes for us as well. So 1 beat divided into blank equal parts. So we'll go back to that 1 beat that we first drew, and we'll do the whole thing as before. We'll do the circle, we'll do the subject, we'll put the 1 in there, we'll put the foot language, we'll put the counts. But then we'll say, all right, let's take that number that we wrote in there, and let's plug it into our definition. So So we'll plug it into our definition. Now it's 1 beat divided into 1 equal part. So we show it with the foot, we do it with the counts, and we tell them, now this is going to be called a subdivision of 1. So this beat is now a subdivision of 1. Then we go on. So we'll start again, we'll erase all that, we'll draw another circle, but this time we're going to write number 2 on the circle. We're going to tell the kids, hey, let's plug that into our definition now. So definition, 1 beat divided into 2 equal parts. And we're going to show them. So let's watch what we do with our foot language. And before we said we don't do the down, up, separated, here's the reason why. Now it is separated, because now this is divided into 2 equal parts. And we'll show the kids the first down is still going to be counted, 1. But now for the up, we do te. And we'll have them practice just this rhythm multiple times, over and over and over again. Then we call it a subdivision of 2. So now they have a subdivision of 1 and 2. We'll put those in combination. And we'll do multiple beats. We'll do 1, 2, 2, 1. We'll just do whatever comes into our minds and have those kids count those rhythms. Finally, they say, hey, let's add some more. You're doing good. You want to add some more? Again, they're really pumped. This is still the first day. They're like, yeah, let's do some more. They jump the gun. They think, oh, it's going to be subdivision of 3. We're like, nope, we do 4 now. We'll save 3 for someday later. We'll do 3 later. So we're going to do a subdivision of 4. So let's plug in the definition first. We do the same thing. 1 beat divided into 4 equal parts. And the kids have pretty much figured it out by now. The foot is going to go down, down, up, up. We've taken that 1 beat. We still show them. It's still just 1 beat. It's just divided into 4 equal parts now. We call the first down, still 1. We call the first up, still te. That doesn't change. Everything else is hop. And at first, this is a little trickier because of the one-ta-ta-ta, but the kids eventually get that down with the foot tap and everything else. So we'll count just the subdivision of 4. Then we do 1, 2s, and 4s. Now again, this is still within the first day. We eventually get them to this rhythm here. This is our goal rhythm for the day. So, y'all want to try and challenge yourselves and count this rhythm? So let's try and count this rhythm. Here we go, ready? Down, up, ready, and count.
1 ta ta 1 tay, 1 ta ta 1, 1 ta ta 1 ta ta 1.
And the kids are like, this is great. Now we say, you've got a really good idea of the concept of rhythm. Let's show you what you really wrote in music. And some kids, again, have some musical background. They think they have an idea what we're going to write, but we write this rhythm. And we show the kids, well, look, 1 ta ta 1, and we go up to the board, we show them exactly what they wrote. And most of them are just like, okay, they are just blown away. I'm not joking. We have had kids that say, can I take a picture of that? They'll pull their phones out and they want to take a picture to show their moms and dads, look what I counted today. So they want to show that rhythm. So this brings us up, and again, this is the end of the first day. So they are pumped. They're super excited. But this brings us up to a big thing that we have this in the poster in our band. It's kind of hard to read. I don't know if anyone can make out the complete sentence. Something is an optical illusion. Anyone got it? Counting, yeah. Counting is an optical illusion. And we want to tell the kids. We ask them, was the rhythm that you counted with the circles difficult? No, it's not difficult at all. And we say, but when you look at that rhythm, I was like, if I put that rhythm in front of high school kids, most of them will start breaking out in sweat. But it's not difficult, is it? So it's an optical illusion. Counting might look hard, it's not. So that's where we get to that step on that point there. To reinforce this multiple times, we do multiple rhythms. And here's a nice little thing too. Again, this is the first day of school. We tell the kids their assignment today is now to go home and compose their own rhythm. So they're actually doing some composition within that first day. Now we have to watch out for the smart alecks. So I'll say it's got to be longer than a beat. I don't want 1, okay? And I don't want, and I've had this before, a 5-page opus of just nothing but millions of circles going. I was like, no, we're not going there either. So at least 3 beats, no more than 10, and you got to use at least all 3 subdivisions. And the kids are really pumped about that too, and they're excited about it. Now, when they come up, it's like, what's the title of your piece? I have to title it? Yeah, you get to title it too. And so they're pumped about this all the way through. Also, what we'll do at this time too, is we'll introduce sizzling the rhythms to the kids. And this gets us kind of started ahead of the game for getting ready for articulation and tonguing, making sure they hold the notes out correctly with the right pulse, and then also making sure that they're not stopping the air using the tongue, actually. So, okay.
Our next concept that we introduce, you have to know all, we teach them.
Oh, I did skip.
That's okay. I got it.
Okay.
To be a successful counter, we teach them you have to have 3 qualities. Those are knowledge. You have to know how to count the rhythms. You have to have concentration. You have to be focused. I would tell them focus grasshopper. That used to be like my keyword for like they're not behaving. Focus grasshopper. And then coordination, which is very challenging for those baby 6th graders. And then, as Tim said, we would introduce sizzling. So the next big chunk of the piece is our note chart. So what we do is we get our kids to get a blank piece of paper, and at the top they have to write a whole note. So we have a whole note, and then on the very far other side, actually at the very bottom, we draw a 64th note. And we tell the kids, count how many differences you can see, how many different steps that you have to get to make that whole note into that 64th note. We don't tell them what the words are, but we just say, how would you make that circle into that weird thing over there? And they go through all the steps, and they should figure out that it's 7. And so then we go step by step and showing them how we get from a whole note to a 64th note. So what we would do is we say, here is this circle. This is called a note head. We're going to make one change to it. We're going to add a stem. So that's one change that we made. And then we're going to say, and then we're going to fill in the note head. And then we're going to add a flag, add a flag, add a flag, add a flag. So then eventually, whenever they're done, they should have a note chart that looks like this. We started with a whole note, we added half, quarter, and they basically went all the way through. Then what we do is we tell them that first note that we drew, it had how many parts to it? It had 1 part. We didn't add anything to it. It was the original whole note. So I want you to put a 1 next to it. So the kids will put equals 1. And then we say, okay, I want you to double that number. And they'll say 2. So I said, I want you to write a 2 next to that second note. And then we're going to double that number again, and the kids will say, what? 4, very good. And then we're going to double it again, and they're going to say what? 8, 16, 32, 64. The really smart kids will get it really fast, and they'll just start rambling off numbers. That's how you know who the bassoon players are. So with this, they have this on this piece of paper, and it should take up the entire piece of paper from top to bottom. And this will be probably their most important piece of paper that they will use on their tests. They will refer to it all the time. And I still have kids that kept it at the very front of their binder, and whenever they would forget like what an 8th note was called, they'd go back and check it. Can't believe we forget what an 8th note is. So next step, we'll tell the kids we want to get our notes into our rhythms. In order to do this, we want to play a game. And we ask the kids if they have ever played a, oh, I'm sorry, did I skip a step?
No names.
Oh, I'm sorry. So then we did one dry run. So we're gonna go through what we call the notes. So we start up with the money notes, what we call the money notes. And so we have 1 whole note, right? So that whole note is, sorry, I flipped it on it, didn't I? So the whole note is $1, right? And then whenever we have 4 quarters, we call that a quarter note. And then, of course, the half note when you have half a dollar. Then whenever we get to the bottom, that's when we tell them these are the easy ones to remember. The 8 is an 8th note, 16 note. They really love those because once you remember the number, they're really easy to remember. All right, now we're going to the game, and this is when it gets really fun. This is whenever it's actually something a little bit different than probably what you've seen other people do. So this is our card game. We tell them how many of you guys have ever played a game where the ace is the most important card, and have them will be like, what is a card? We don't play card games anymore, it's all on our phones. And then we say, have you ever played a game where the ace is the low card? It's the worst card in the deck. If you get it, you're dead. So what we say is, you know what the most important card is based off of the rules of the game. So we have to first learn the rules of our game. And in our game of music, we have something that tells us what the rules of the game are. The game, or the rules are called a time signature. Yes. What the time signature looks like is 2 numbers, one on top of the other. And it looks like a fraction. And we just do question mark over question mark. We tell them the top number is not important. I repeat, we tell them the top number is Not important right now. We learn that later. Right now, we focus on the bottom number. And we tell them that the bottom number tells us three things. It tells us the name of the game. It tells us what the main note is, or what we will call the ace card. And then that the main note equals a subdivision of 1. So whatever is on the bottom is going to get that 1, the foot tap, the 1 beat that we practiced. Then we write out a rhythm on the board with the foot language and counts. We have kids count it a couple times. So let's count it real quick. Here we go. Down, up, ready, go. 1, 2,
1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2.
Good. Okay. Then we put a time signature in front of it. It's the 2 question marks. We'll tell the kids, okay, make sure you have your note chart, and let's use the game 8. Is that what we stuck with? There you go. Okay. In the game of 8, and I'll actually ask you this. In the game of 8, that's what the title is, right? It's a game of 8. So what is going to be our main note in the game of 8? What's the most important note? It's going to be the 8th note. So that is our ace. That's our most important. If you get that one, you're winning the game. Okay? It's our most important note. And it also tells us that the 8th note gets 1 beat. The subdivision of 1. So we'll go to the board, and what we're going to do is we're going to replace the subdivision of 1, the circle with the 1 in it, and we're going to put an 8th note inside of it. And what we explained to the kids is we didn't change anything. We just replaced that 1 with the note. They're the same thing. So it should count exactly the same. So let's count it with our new 8th note in there. Here we go. Down, up, ready, go.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2.
So what we'll do is we'll let kids play. They'll choose their own game, right? And all we'll do is we'll substitute that 1. We'll keep the 2s and the 4s the same for at least like a day. And they'll just practice substituting. They can change games. So we'll do the game of 16, change the bottom time signature to a 16, and replace all the subdivisions of 1 with a 16th note. Is this making sense so far? Okay, and hopefully it'll make sense as we keep on going.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you guys leave all of that visible to the students?
The note language and
Like the like the written out words and the
Yes.
and the,
And no, sometimes. Sometimes we take some of it away as well because we like I said we practice it multiple times. So sometimes we'll say, you don't need the counts, do you? No. We'll get rid of that. You don't need the foot language, do you? No, we get rid of that as well. So now at this point, what we usually try to do is we try to take them into what we call note math. And this makes it seems like we're stopping the game and we kind of have an idea where this game's going, but this really does help us out in the long run. So for note math, we start with 64th notes. And we'll take a 64th plus a 64th. We'll write this on the board. We'll ask the kids to write it in their notes too as a new thing. And we'll show it how it looks if we were adding it instead of with notes, but with fractions. And we'll reduce it down, get 2 64ths, reduce it down to 132, and the kid's like, oh, it's a 32nd note. We'll erase that and put that 32nd note in between the 2 64ths, just a little bit bigger. And then we'll repeat the process with the 32nd plus the 32nd to get a, and we do the fractions again if we have to. And we just keep building our little note tree up. What we get to by the end is something that looks like this. And we really want to show the kids that the 64th note is the small note, and it keeps adding in to the big note, which the biggest note is going to be our whole note. We want them to visually see that as well. It's not just the math part. We'll also go to this point and tell the kids, hey, take a look at that plus sign. We don't use plus signs in music. We use something totally different. We teach them what a tie is. And we don't explain, obviously, that ties are the same pitches. That comes later. But we just want them to know that a tie will combine 2 notes together. That's our addition. And the kids just love that. It looks like a happy face. Okay? Once we get that one, then we go on to adding 4 notes. So a 64th plus a 64th plus a 64th plus a 64th gets 2 32nds. Add those 2 together, they get to a 16th. And we'll practice those with multiple questions. We'll use the actual notes. We'll draw those on the boards, show those multiple times, 2 at a time, sometimes 4 notes at a time. We'll use ties instead. We'll do them in combination, sometimes 2 32nds plus a 16th equals an 8th. We'll do them in multiple ways so they can just get that idea of how those notes can combine and make bigger notes. So it's not really that difficult at all. It doesn't take that much extra time either. Now, when we go back to our subdivision here, this is when we go back and we would just review the game again. We use the same game right now, but we'll use different games all the times. We just constantly keep changing it up so it's fresh information to them. So we don't keep just repeating the same thing.
How do you present this? Is it on the board? Is it
It is on a board, and we're writing this out, and they're writing it out too. Another thing that we use is we've got, you know, you go to Home Depot and get those walls for like showers that are just like dry erase boards. When we took it to our wood shop, they cut them up into little boards, and sometimes we'll just say, write that note and show me. And I have a quick glance that I can see who's actually got the note and who's like in left field. And I can know, okay, I gotta keep going on, or I need to reteach this again. So we do that in multiple ways. Now, so let's say we do this again, game of 8, main note's the 8th note, replace the subdivision of 1. That was our 8th. So we say, if the 8th was the most important card, what's the next one down? What's the next in order? And the kids will say, oh, that's the king. So we'll shift that down and say, all right, well, we're gonna take the 16th note now, which is our king card, basically, and we're gonna replace it with the subdivision of 2. Now, if we're gonna replace this with the subdivision of 2, and I'm holding out the 2, emphasizing that, how many notes should we see? And of course, the answer is 2. And then we remind them through the note math. Remember that 16 plus the 16th equals a what? An 8th note, and it fills in that beat completely. So they can see that same thing. Then we have them count this rhythm out. And then we'll erase it, and we'll change the whole game again. And we'll do it again. We'll say, let's do it with a half note. Half note's the main note. What's going to be the subdivision of 2? Quarter notes, how many? 2. We put those in. And yes, we still keep the circles. Then, of course, we go back, and we repeat the same process again. Ace, king, now we're going to the queen. And we're going to get the 32nd notes. And we're saying we're going to replace those with the subdivision of 4. How many notes? 4. So we're going to replace those with 4 subdivisions. We still keep the notes from being barred right now. We'll bar those here in a second, but we keep them from being unbarred right now. And we count this rhythm out. And then we do it multiple times. This is a point, too, where like you were saying, do we keep all the things written underneath there? We change it up now. And sometimes we'll start the game with the time signature already there. Instead of starting with the rhythm written out, we'll start with the time signature first, then we'll put the rhythm out, but we'll go ahead and have some of the notes written in. And we just start building it up slowly to a point where we're just really just start getting them doing rhythms. It really kind of goes a lot faster, too, for a lot of these kids as well. Now, we still keep doing the 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, but we're going to get that out of the way here in a second. So.
So now that they're confident in doing this, we're next going to introduce the top number of the time signature. So what we do is we write a symbol on the board, probably only about 4 beats, and then we go through all the steps one more time to choose a game. Probably, I think we chose a game of 8, yes. And then we'll go through all the steps. So we'll have them write out the counting, everything. And then I'll ask them, how many beats do you see on the board? So how many beats do you see? 4, right? Because we see 4 circles, right? 4 groupings of notes. And so we'll say the 4 is what we're going to put as our top number. So that top number tells us that there are so many beats in whatever we're writing, right? So in this example, like I said, we have 4 beats. 4 goes on the top. We'll go through a whole bunch of them. So we'll choose one that's 7 beats long. We'll have the kids practice it and everything like that. So then what I hear is kids asking, well, what if you have something that's like 2 million, right? Is that the next slide?
Oh, no, we'll just have to change the counts now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's right.
I'm skipping steps. So then what we do is we start asking, we go on beat 1, we're going to say 1. So we know that that is our first beat. On the second beat, what do you think we're going to say? A 2, right? But we got to keep everything else the same. It's going to be a 2-ta-ta-ta. Beat 3, we're now going to say 3 instead of 1, and beat 4, we're going to say 4-ta-ta-ta because it's beat 3. Very good. Do we want to count it, or are you guys good now? They're like, no, we're good. All right, now the next thing we talk about is if we're playing a really long piece of music, like perhaps a symphony, we're not going to play something that's going to have some crazy time signature that has some 2 million over beats, because that would be ridiculous. Poor Dr. Garner going, okay, I need you guys to look at 1,007,000. It'd be terrible. And so what we did is we have created a smarter way of looking at this, and this is called a bar line. And what we compare a bar line to is in an old video game, whenever you have the reset button. Now he says this is on his original Nintendo. Do we agree?
Yes.
Because I thought it was a purple slidey bar. Oh, I'm sorry. Shows your age again. I had the purple slide bar where you just push it back. And, so that's what I always imagine. And so what we tell them is the bar line resets every so often. So you would show 4 beats on the board, and what we would do is, since there are 4 beats, we would put a bar line, and that resets our counting. So in this first measure, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. Then when we would reset our counts, and we would start over again with 1, and we would show them. We would have it count it, and we would do it over and over and over. We would add the subdivisions, the vote language, make a point out, do the counting language, make our kids go through the whole process. And what's cool about this process is now, like a weekend, we can ask a kid, hey, I want you to look at measure 2. Oh, I'm sorry. And we have to also introduce what a measure is, right? So we have, we show them what a chunk of it is. It's a measure. And so then with this way, now we can say, okay, I want you to look at measure 3, beat number 2, and they can already tell you what that is. They're no longer guessing. They're not saying the second note instead of the second beat, stuff like that. So that's when it becomes extremely valuable. Making sure. I think that's all. Cool.
Okay, now, as for the circles on the beats, that is actually very easy to replace and not get in. So I just put a rhythm up there. Oh, forgot. There's that one thing.
Yep.
We also definitely introduced them to Cindy Bullock's key signature chant, and the kids absolutely love this little thing. And so we have our time signature chant. So in pulse, you always ask them, what's the time? And the answer, the kids respond in answer. 4 time, 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. And we keep that same thing always. And the kids love it. We just
It's not mine. I stole it from Sue Fletcher.
awesome from you.
I have no original thoughts.
So the kids really like this. So, so like I said, it's very simple. We have them do the foot tap with it, and I'll say, what's the time?
4 beats per measure, and the
Quarter note gets the
beat.
Exactly. Now, so this works out very well for us. Now, as I was saying before, the circles, those actually are really helpful for us sometimes if the kids are kind of having trouble seeing where the beat goes. But we tell them music is very logical. It's going to space itself out logically. So getting rid of the circles is not a problem at all. So when we click that button, the circles go away. It looks really easy. We teach them that the flags for bar lines will bar together. Okay, so those flags will hang on to each other. But we emphasize that they're going to hold on to their own beat. They're not going to hold on to someone else's beat. They're only going to hold on to what belongs to their beat. Now, the problem is that we'll eventually run into this rhythm, and the kids are like, what's happening here? They're going to initially think, when they see something like this, subdivision of 4. That's going to be their initial thing. That's when we put the circles back and say, nope, you're wrong. Remember, we're in 4/4 time. This is the subdivision of 2 because of 1 bar line. And they'll go like, well, what the heck happened there? I'll say, well, and the easy answer for me is I'll say composers were lazy. They didn't want to write, 2 individuals. They just want to write quick and get it over with. That also is my answer when the kids come into time signatures or key signatures and say, well, why didn't they just write the sharp in front of every F? Well, composers were lazy. They didn't want to do it for you. So, how are we doing here? All right, as we're getting closer to the end of the 2 weeks, remember, we're only taking 2 weeks on this little time here. We get more and more and more into 4/4 time because we're going to see this in the beginning band book. And I guarantee you think I'm crazy. I'm not. Our kids will start coming to this rhythm, and their first reaction is like, this is boring. Can we do something else? I mean, we literally have kids tell us that all the time. We're like, no, we got to do this. But we get into 4/4, 3/4, 2/4. But we also want to start getting into notes longer than 1 beat because that is also something that you see very often. We start with whole notes, actually, not just with quarter notes. So, again, since we already have these tools, we use them. We'll use ties, tie these beats together, and then we'll also show them how it changes the foot language. We'll also show them that, this is what we're going to do with our pulse. We're going to pulse these notes out in order to show that this is all one thought. Then we tie the other 2 beats together. Remind them that is starting on beat 3, so we have to count it with the 3. A lot of times they'll want to try 1, 2. Then again, I go back to my little adage. Are composers lazy? Yeah. Well, are they going to write all these tied notes out? No. Well, let's do some note math. No. Oh, okay. And then so we'll get to the whole notes. I'm sorry, half notes. Then we just repeat the process again, and we get to our whole note, showing the pulses and everything. Now, the pulses are very important to us on this little part right here. And we want to make sure that they emphasize that pulse part. So, yeah, I think this is your part now. So,
So this is when we teach pulses are really just the eighth note subdivision, and that helps kids really understand how a whole note is divided. We write out a measure in 4/4 time with 8 notes and counts, and then we tie them all together. And it is here to introduce our unofficial mascot of Irons Middle School Band, and that is our little green man. Now, where I come from, at Texas Tech University, a little green man means something way different. A little green man is actually a drinking game. So the first time Tim introduced us, I was like, Tim, you can't teach that to kids. What are you thinking? But what our little green man at Irons Middle School is, Dan's like, I did not.
I was like, I don't know what that is.
She's one of the good kids. So what our little green man is inside everyone's head is a little green man. And his job is to help us keep a steady pulse and to subdivide all of our notes. So we'll get the kids to count the whole note and act out the little green man's job. Then we count it again and ask if they can hear him. They usually will say, yeah, I can hear the little green man. And we'll also get questions like, can I have a little green woman? Or can I have a little purple man? Weird stuff like that. And we say, absolutely, yes, that's fine. As long as you can hear your little green man in your head all the time. And then we ask them to high five their little green man. And it's the funniest thing in the world because they will actually do this. Say, high five your little green man. Wow. Like, and that's when we know we're in low brass class. It's okay, I did a little brass guy. I can make fun of him. The final thing we do before we get instruments out are our rests. We did not forget. We will go back to our original chart and we'll go through every single thing about it, right? So we'll start with our eighth rest because usually they understand the eighth the easiest way. So we'll say it's an eighth note, but if we want to change it to a rest, we're going to call it an eighth rest. And we'll show like here's a little swiggle. It looks just like a flag, right? So that's how we know it's an eighth rest. And we work our way down to the 64th. Then of course we do the hat for the whole rest and the half rest. And then for the quarter note, we just tell them it's like this weird fancy 3. I always just say, give me a weird squiggle. Because quarter rests are hard, especially for 6th graders. Then we go back and we write a rhythm. We go through all the steps to adding notes. And we choose whether to add a note or a rest. We add a rest, then I like using the idea of using small counting language. Right, so we would write 1, 2, and then for a 3, we'd write it in a smaller font on the board. Just so that they're thinking, okay, that's in our head, we don't say it out loud. And however, this is the time when the little green man will come to shine as we start using these rests, because that's when they have to actually engage and think with their brain. Did I skip something?
No. All right. So, as I was mentioning before, this first 2 weeks, we don't just keep doing rests and things like that. We also introduce other things for the kids as well. We're also doing staff and note names. We have time to get those in as well, so that way it's not totally just all rhythmic things also. And then, once we do that, we start getting the best instruments out. We start going through the books. And like I said before, we start finding that the rhythms are just so much easier for the kids. And so it gets just a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more easier for anything else we're doing. Now, like I said before, when we get to the book, the kids are looking at the book and they're like, this rhythm is boring, Mr. King. So what we have to do is we supplement those things out with more rhythms. And we do multiple time signatures because they're more used to seeing that already. So it's really easy for them to see multiple time signatures and get that going as well. And so we'll do counting things and all that. We're going to, try using some of Darcy Carter-Williams. She did a really great rhythm clinic this last year. She had some really good rhythms pages. We're going to start using those to put in as well. Now, for every line that we get into the book, we always go through the same process, very similar to Darcy Carter's. We'll tell the kids, first thing we're always going to do is we're going to count it. Then we're going to say the note names. And we say the note names in the rhythm as well. And then for brass players, we're going to position it. We'll do the actual positions, and we do where all the brasses are doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the different positions. And then we can finally play those notes out. If we run into a rhythm that is a little confusing to the kids, that's when we can go back to the tools that we had before, and we can introduce them with lines across, up and down, just doing all those different little, circling the note names, showing the rhythm, or the foot language and all that. Later on in here is when we get to these things. These are called rhythm grids. And it's kind of like just rhythm pages, but instead we've gridded them out in little sections like this. Now, the kids can count them across like we normally do, like that. Then, if we choose to, we can count them straight down the page. And that will change through multiple time signatures. Or we can have them go up the page. Or, my favorite, we can have them go backwards. And when we do backwards, we're not literally counting 4, 3, 2, 1, but they'll count 5, measure 4, measure 3. Asking them to shift their eyes just a little bit faster. So this is taking one rhythm page, but making it a little more interesting because now it changes it up more often. So it's not just kids memorizing line 1 across over and over and over again. Now we say, oh, let's do 1 down. And just, let's change some time signatures here. When we were doing this, Miss Bullock saw the other day, she had a great idea. We started doing this where we just go in a swirl, basically just kind of starting at the edges and going around, going towards the center, all the way through the middle, and doing those types of things. And we have 6 different rhythm grids with our kids. And we expect every single beginning class to count and pass off all 6 rhythm grids. And we do it in a race too, so you can finish first. And a lot of times if we skip the race, skip a day, like we're working really hard on something else, and we're like, oh, we're not going to count today, we actually get chewed out by the kids. They're actually like, no, the clarinets are going to get ahead of us. You can't do this. Yes, I can. Maybe I'll wait 2 days now. But we just love the fact that they're excited about counting rhythms. They want to be doing this. They just love doing it, feeling that they're really doing great with it. And I just also want to put this in this too. Trust us when we're telling you this is not a magic bullet. There's many days where we just have to like, okay, what's this note? And we're like, what? Okay, that's a whole note, but let's go. So we have to go back and review. They're kids. They do those little things all the time with us. Okay? All right. Last part. Yep.
Cool. That's big.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we get to what the kids call real music or multiple parts, we really emphasize the importance of the little green man and subdividing. If he isn't helping, we can't stay together. That's what we always tell the kids. You need to wake up your little green man. He's asleep. In fact, I was at band camp for Texas Tech today, and I just happened to be sitting next to an Irons kid watching someone rehearse, and I said, dude, you need to wake up your little green man. He's like, I know, he's been napping all summer. And so, like, they take it very serious. They're like, oh, he put up a human today. They're so cool about it. We always have the metronome going, and that's, we tell them they need to link their little green man to that metronome. Otherwise, when we use our harmony director, it's basically worth nothing. It's a $3,000, like, really fancy keyboard. It's not worth anything. So we do tell them that they have to link it to them. I always like imagine like a little telephone wire that links to the harmony director. And then once we get to dotted rhythms, having this foot language really helps us. It's really easy. So what we do is we just add one more of our arrows to the foot language, and it makes it incredibly easy to introduce that. It's really easy to teach syncopation as well because of that foot language. It's really simple. And then when we get to 7th grade or 8th grade, depending on what literature we're playing, and we get to introduce 6/8 time, that's when the kids get really excited because we're like, hey guys, we're going to finally learn the subdivision of 3. And it's like the biggest deal in the world to them. They're like, oh my gosh, we finally get it. And so we get to introduce the concept of simple meter, duple meter, then compound meter, triple meter. And then compound, we just change, so when we do introduce this triple meter, we change from down, up, to a down, press, up, which I think is a concept you guys are already aware of here, right? We do a down, press, up, instead of just a simple down, up, down, up. again, like we said, this isn't the magic bullet and it solves all rhythms. A lot of times we have to go back and we have to remind kids. I'll make them get their charts back out. I'll make them go through the concepts again. We'll talk about, okay, what's the bottom note, what's the top note. Lots of reminding. But no matter what, we feel like it gives the students a really strong rhythmic foundation. Both of our bands did really well at sight reading. We're never really worried about rhythm in our sight reading. That's never an issue with our kiddos. Usually it's something with low brass, with E flat, E natural. That's my well, I teach low brass, so. And so they're really confident readers, sight readers, and they're very strong performers. I think I'm a little bit biased, but most importantly, I think it's just really cool when they have a really good understanding of their music. It's not just rote. It's not just, vomiting back whatever their teacher told them. I feel like they actually have a quality understanding of everything. I think that is all. We're going to put the videos of full I recorded Tim teaching every single class. So we have 2 full weeks of him going through every step of this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to post those onto our band website. And I'll give Tim that link. I'm in the middle of moving right now, so I'm not done with this project yet. But I'll post it up there so that if you guys want to go and see step by step, because this is, we basically had to dumb it down a lot and cut a whole bunch out. So if you want to see how that whole thing works, especially the game and music part specifically, we will have those videos up for you to watch. There is Tim's email. I'm currently email-less because, as I said, I am lame and don't work at Irons anymore at planoirc.org. And so I'm sadly leaving Tim. Don't talk about it because it'll make me cry. But there's Tim's email if you do have any questions. And we're going to be hanging out for a little while, so if you want to come talk to us, feel free. Thank you so much.
I've used this before.
Travis.
I've used this before, and it works really well. So give it a chance, try it out.
I will tell him.
Yeah.
I've only like, I've given like 5 songs. It reminds me of like a particular voice and it makes me so happy.
Oh, yeah.
Like I just want to listen to it. I'm so
I've got it.